So basically the format is that we discuss a video, we view a video, and then we're going to just discuss it. And the purpose of the whole webinar is to be able to help, perhaps through the discussion, inspire ideas for service work, as well as network with other people who are doing service projects. So,
okay, but I had the problem to just, I tried to click join and that wasn't work. So that was the other option through the phone. So I'm talking right now through my iPhone.
oh, okay, all right.
So that's all right, if, maybe I can watch the video later, I just, so.
Okay, well, you'd be able to still hear the video though, right? Right, okay, so then that's what matters more than having to watch the video, is that you can hear what's going on.
Yeah, but I don't know, I am not in the same page because I couldn't be with you guys in the same page. I don't understand what to do, I should do this, I don't know.
Okay.
We can send the links to the videos to you after the webinar.
Right,
Yeah,
and
that's right. So, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and then we can also send you the recorded, because this gets recorded, and then Jim sends me a copy of it, and I send it out to everybody so they can watch it again if they want to.
Yeah.
So today's video is called Everyday Leaders. It's by a guy named Drew Dudley, and he tells this whole story about lollipop moments, and how we sort of we make leadership much bigger than it actually is, because we have this idea based on the media, how the media supports leaders, that you have to do this life-changing, world-changing event. So we'll start with just watching the video and then have a discussion about it. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to add?
I need to jump in for a second. Kasha, are you on a speakerphone? Because it looks like you're causing echoes. So you need to mute yourself if you're going to stay on a speakerphone like that. Although else the video will distort.
How do you mute yourself on an iPhone?
Well,
can you mute her?
I can mute her, but then she won't be able to unmute herself. I'll mute her during the video at least. Otherwise, we'll all not hear it. Okay. Anyway, whenever you're ready, we'll go forward.
Okay, so Jim, just go ahead and play. Let's watch the video.
I want to start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader and we don't let ourselves take credit for it and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who have helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school, on a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, I remember the first time that I met you. And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, on my day before I started university, I was in the hotel room with my mom and my dad, and I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day, and if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us, we will take you home. We love you no matter what. And she said, so I went the next day, and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around, and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she says, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home, and just at that moment, you came out of the Student Union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shinorama, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years, and you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shinorama. And all of a sudden, you got to me and you just stopped and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me and you smiled and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop and you held it out to him. And you said, you need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turned beet red. And he wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face, and you looked at my mom and my dad, and you said, look at that. Look at that. First day away from home, and already she's taking candy from a stranger. And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy, and I don't know why I'm telling you this. But in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm going to miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, you should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker. I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment, and I've searched my memory banks because that is funny, and I should remember doing it, and I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an incredibly important person in my life, was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us. And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you've changed the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today.
So good video, yeah?
Yeah.
He's shaking his head.
Yeah, that's a really good.
So what did all of you like about it?
I really liked it. It showed that you don't have to do amazing things. The little things add up, that everybody can make a difference. And all of
Right.
us together can make a huge difference without anybody having to do anything amazing or great. You know, I thought that was really good.
Yeah, he simplifies the whole thing about leadership, doesn't he?
You know, I think a better word than leadership is love. I mean, maybe you didn't want to use the word love because it has so much emotional baggage, but it's this caring for other people and doing something about it. That's love.
That's very true. Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, Ed, because before we do these webinars, I watch the video and then just allow thoughts to come up for me. And that was one of the thoughts I had as well. Because he talks about the fact that he doesn't remember that moment. He doesn't have any recollection of doing that specific act. And I think that when we're truly in that moment of deep love for another person, there's a different type of consciousness that's taking place. So there's no mental imprint made when we're doing that act. It's so spontaneous. It's from the heart. And the heart doesn't record things. The heart is completely unconditional.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's
Other
interesting
thoughts?
that you never really know what people are going through when you're dealing with them. You don't know how close they are to a decision or how leery they are of something. And it's interesting to see an instance where somebody could have gone either way and that moment changed them. And how many times does that happen for all of us? I mean, that would be interesting to know. So it's important to treat people with love at all times, leadership.
Yeah, good point.
I think also, I'm echoing to you.
You're breaking up just a little bit, but go ahead.
Okay, I think things also that jumped out to me is that he was thinking about himself a lot. He was just very authentic and natural in trying to help the students relax and have fun, and he made impact.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. He didn't have any ego or self-consciousness about what he was doing. He was just going out and doing it, and very much the whole spontaneous thing, it's completely from the heart.
Which brings up the question, how can we apply this to service or to our as leaders, in a service organization?
Did you say discernment?
As leaders in a service organization.
Yeah.
I'm
Did
going to
everybody get that question? So Barbara, you were asking how can we apply this in a service organization, right?
yes.
Okay, yeah, that was the question. Because just to put the cards on the table, one of the biggest problems I think that the Theosophical Order of Service is facing is that perhaps we either have people that are out there that are doing the service work but not talking about it, or we have people who just don't think it's very important at all. But so this type of video is really important because in the sense that it breaks it down to, it's just everyday acts. It's everyday acts of complete selflessness where you're not thinking about how you look, how you come across to somebody else. it's the sort of spontaneous naturalness that just comes through.
Yeah, a thought that, you can't organize everyday acts. All you
No.
can do is encourage it, but what is the purpose of the organization in this context, I guess, is another way of asking Barbara's question.
What's the purpose of the organization in this context? And what do you mean by that, Ed?
Well, I mean, I thought the point of the video was basically, being open to being a leader by, taking action in everyday moments and acknowledging others for their everyday moments. And that seems like more of a personal type thing.
Right.
It doesn't require an organization to do that. So where does the organization fit in to that definition of service?
Well, I think one of the issues that we're having is that there's this sort of like what he talks about in the very beginning. We get so intimidated by the fact that, that people are in a position where they're supposed to be sort of the quote-unquote liaison. And for some reason, that responsibility scares people. So there's not this sort of, there's sort of this intimidation about quote-unquote being a leader, which is part of the reason that we're screening these videos, is because this has got a great message behind it. That, if more people would stop worrying about the title of what they're doing and just go out and do the work, the word leadership would mean nothing. It's just a word. Are there any thoughts?
I think when you become part of the Theosophical Order of Service, or you recognize that you'd like to serve, just about all of our lives are kind of focused on every interaction being of some kind of service. I think we all have that mentality at this point. So one of the things in the video, you don't know when you're serving. You really don't. So you have to have that constant service attitude of serving humanity in every interaction. It's got to be the little things, just like as well as projects.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point.
It also
Oh,
means
sorry.
that
Nope, go ahead.
one of the issues is not to be afraid of taking a role in a group and saying, hey, let's go, because it's little things make such.
Oh, Barbara, you're breaking up.
I'm going to and try and see if I get a better connection.
Okay. Are you going out in the rain? What did she say she was doing?
She was disconnecting and reconnecting to the room
Okay.
to get a better signal.
And we lost her.
No, she disconnected on purpose.
Okay.
There is a difference. Well, I'm thinking of the role of the leader in an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And the leader in an organization, if this leader is setting the pace for the entire group, that's more than everyday leader. This is someone who has a vision, who has a mission, and who is respected by those in the organization. And that leadership role is critical because it is what moves the organization one way or another. So while we are all leaders, the leader of an organization has a different role than the average everyday leader.
Yes, I would agree with you. I think that there's more responsibility when it's a leader of an organization. But I also think that if you don't have those qualities, as Walter said, it's sort of this everyday kind of thing every moment, and that percolates down to the people that, you know, that are in the organization. So if it's just a matter of being a leader within an organization, because of the organization, instead of just innately having those qualities, I wonder. I mean, I wonder how that impacts an organization.
And no matter where you fall on the hierarchy of worker, you should still lead by example. And there's an opportunity to lead at every level.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the video showed is his definition of a leadership basically includes inspiration, to inspire someone to go for a goal or reach their potential, and both the leader of an organization and everyday leadership has that in common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that makes me wonder how we can inspire in our groups when they don't necessarily want to be inspired.
That's a very good question.
I mean, has anyone in their group faced that issue, or what are your thoughts about that?
I've tried to plan projects that I haven't had much support on, and it's frustrating. And I'm almost tempted, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I'm almost tempted to just plan something and then ask for help when it's established instead of throwing ideas out there that people can just say, no, no, no.
That's really kind of a good idea, actually. But the problem is, of course, if nobody comes to help, you're stuck with it on your own. But that is so frustrating that people, you know, shoot down every idea.
Yeah. Or there isn't that enthusiasm to do it. You're doing it because, okay, we do this because we have to do this. You know, but there's not that joie de vivre to be able to do it. It's not that zest. There isn't that zest. So it's really a question of how does one inspire? If you have this inspiration to want to help other people, how do you? I mean, do you do it just because? Do you just keep on doing it? You do the acts of service and so forth, and keep the enthusiasm up, and hope that it's like a disease and people catch it, like a virus.
Well, I think you have to find a commonality among all the people in the group that you're leading to find what it is that they want to do, what inspires them. And if they won't talk about what inspires them, then I think you're really stuck. But if you can somehow elicit from the people what their passion is telling them that they want to do,
Mm-hmm.
then you're kind of halfway there.
You know, I think the means is basically painting a picture that's attractive to people, that the things that's preventing people from doing it is they have a negative picture in their mind of what whatever it is entails. That, you know, it won't be fun or it's not what I want to do. And so they have a picture in their mind, mostly a negative picture. And I guess it's up to us to paint a positive picture that will encourage people to want to do it.
Yeah, I think that's part of that inspiration to make that picture inspirational.
Any thoughts about how you do that?
Well, I think you can show the effects of what the service will result in. That always has been something that impacts me. I mean, if you want to go into the schools and help a child read, then to show the effects of your service with that child so that at the end of the curriculum, they now can read, and that showing those effects is one thing that always inspires me.
So having sort of a concrete goal at the end that is visible, you can see what you've done. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's one kind of inspiration for people, is to see that concrete goal. For me, that's always helpful, so that I know that the hours that I'm putting in on something, that at the end someone is able to have a better life as a result of that service.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Other thoughts?
Dragana, do you have any thoughts? You've been so quiet.
I am, all over the place, thinking, I mean, it's not our experience, at least in our group, whenever it was suggested that we were supposed to do some work of service, it was always 50% of people, I would say, who participated, or maybe I don't even think how many of us, but there were people always who would do it.
Right.
Another thing is that maybe when those questions arise of whether we should participate or not, maybe most of us start thinking about priorities, what are our priorities and how, what would be best for me to do that day. I mean, I don't know what people's issues are when they think about whether to go and help or not. For me, it should be something very, very serious to prevent me to not do it, for example. But I don't know how other people think.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, is that it's really trying to find out what is it that makes people want to go out and serve and other people not.
Yeah. And there are always going to be people who don't want to go out and do some hands-on service. And so we kind of need to accept that, but to find the ones who are willing to go out and do that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the other part is that some people think they don't have the skills to do something, or they don't know how to do something effectively. So they might need some training or some examples so that they feel competent at being able to do whatever this is.
Like the lollipop.
Yeah, because that's the beauty of the lollipop video, is the fact that it's so simple.
I just think that most of us would do that what he explained. You know, if you think about it, that kind of service you can come across very, very often.
Mm-hmm.
But that's no less a service than bringing food to the homeless or providing coats for children in the wintertime when they can't afford it.
And I do wonder if that's, you know, I mean, that's part of the reason we've got this whole campaign for kindness, and we've listed so many things that are so simple. And we've actually, it's funny, we started a Twitter account for the TOS, and we've got how many followers now, Walter? Are you there?
There are 56 right now.
There's 56 followers. And this whole thing is kind of funny because when we started, it was like, okay, we didn't have any followers whatsoever. And it just means the number of people that are aware of the work that we're doing. And the Campaign for Kindness has also gotten some treading on Facebook as well. But it's not within the TS. That's the funniest thing. It's all these other people that are out there doing everyday lollipop stories. So I was trying to make a point with that, but then I absolutely lost track of what I was saying. So sorry. I'm not having a lollipop moment right now.
That's all right. You don't have to. I think, you know, through the years we've gotten some very mixed messages about service.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, there have been, and I can't quote exactly from what material, but some of the material over the years has talked about the deepest service being that of raising the consciousness of humanity, and that's where we really need to focus. And so HPB's true service was in writing The Secret Doctrine and ISIS Unveiled. And so, you know, we've got this idea, I think, from some of that literature that that's the kind of thing we should be doing.
Right.
And yet at the same time, HPB turned in her whatever first class ticket to buy steerage for herself and a family.
Right.
So, and Annie Besant, you know, was arrested for social justice activism before it was called that. So I think it's a matter of helping maybe our members, and this is so much bigger than the TOS, but since we're all members of the TS, it's appropriate, of helping us all understand that both of those things are needed. Not just one, but both. Or am I crazy?
No, I think you're exactly correct. But that does bring up the point then that if people want to spread the word more than they want to give coats, then that's their choice.
Yes.
And so we have to be okay with that too. So
Yes.
For instance, I teach classes. I teach probably 2 or 3 classes a week, and now I have a Theosophy study group that's come out of that. And that's my passion, and that's what I do. I don't work in a food bank or in some other organizations, but I guess I fit in with that. That's what Theosophists think they're supposed to be doing.
So it sounds like Diana is kind of in agreement with that. What do others think?
You know, through one of the things that I've learned through the experience of helping other people is the fact that You know, if you want to separate the two organizations, or the two different vehicles that there are to be able to practice theosophy, you know, there's the whole thing about study. And we can study and we can meditate and do all of that, and that's wonderful. And we think that by studying and meditating, we're raising the consciousness of the world because we're raising our own consciousness, which is true. I mean, you are. You impact the people that you're around. Like, I was around my family last night. They all know that I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't eat meat. Now, that's not my family. My family does all of that stuff, and I'm sort of the odd one out. But my niece and my nephew started arguing yesterday as to who I loved more. And then finally another family member came by and said, no, she loves everybody. She loves everybody equally. You guys are fighting over something stupid. And it was a big joke because I'm the one who everybody wants to be my favorite niece or nephew. And there's no way to do that because I love them all immensely. But that goes to show me that what I do in my own personal spiritual life is making an impact on my family members because they know that I love them unconditionally, which I see that. At the same time, going out into the world and, you know, dealing with whether it's suicide or dealing with death or helping somebody who's sad or whatever the case might be, I find that I learn so much more about myself from taking what I've learned and putting it out into the world. So it's this sort of give and take constantly. And then the TOS projects that we do when we go to the Humanitarian Service Project, and, you know, that camaraderie with our little group and the fun that we have and the laughter, it helps build this sense of family that you know, I know that I've got my biological family, but then I've also got my theosophical family that I can, you know, who kind of get me, and I get them because we're all doing the same kind of work. So I think that there's a necessity for the two organizations, but I also think that I don't think you can help change the world just by changing the consciousness. We've already seen that it's not working because there's so much that really physically needs to be done. At the same time, we can't push, you know, you have to go to a food bank. You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's people starving. We need to go to Puerto Rico.
Kind of like what Walter was saying a little bit earlier about it's the constant or the consistent daily things that speak to who we truly are.
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
I'm kind of thinking of masonry right now. And one of the things that we do as Masons is we support a group in Africa where they bring young children who do not have parents, and then they're brought to the school and they're provided with education as well as a place to live and food and clothing. And that's what the whole organization does. And when you read the biographies of these children and you see how beneficial our work is, it is quite inspiring. And I don't know what we have in the Theosophical Society that's kind of like comparable, but the idea being this result, that you see where your service is impacting the community.
Yeah. Diana, I don't know, do you know about the Golden Link School?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's you know, very similar to what you're talking about, because all those children, the majority of the children are all on scholarship. They're all very, very poor kids. And what's so interesting is they're poor children who are sort of disadvantaged, and yet they go out and help even more disadvantaged children, which is, it's just remarkable.
I guess that's kind of eluded me, maybe, well, probably because every month when I go to a meeting, we hear about this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why it comes up much more frequently than what TOS is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, possibly. So I did want to mention something that I thought was very interesting toward the end of the video. He talks about creating, acknowledging, paying forward, and saying thank you for those lollipop moments. And I was interested to know if there's anyone here who, you know, like at the beginning of the video, he talks about, has anyone had a moment like that, and were you ever told about it? Or did you ever tell anybody about it? Did you ever go up to the person who gave you that lollipop moment and ever thank them for it? And no one's going to talk about it.
Well, I have something related. I'm not going to tell a story here, but just an idea that maybe the TOS should have a number of different awards that it gives every year for service to highlight the work of people.
That's an idea. Yeah, because it sort of builds self-esteem when you're given some kind of recognition.
And it works in both directions.
Right.
The organization gets recognized as well as who is recognized.
Very true. Very true. That's a thought. That is a thought. And it doesn't have to be an expensive award, you know. I mean, just something very simple, some kind of recognition or acknowledgement.
And that makes it very visible then to the members.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important too. It brings it to your consciousness, and you see it and you acknowledge that this is something someone else has done, and that can inspire you. I say can.
Yeah, no, that's, you know, that is really such a good thought, though, because I was sitting here thinking about, sorry, I'm having a horrible cramp in my back, so I keep on fidgeting around. But I was sitting there thinking about you know, when Harvey happened, the Houston Lodge ended up, despite the fact that many of the people from the Houston Lodge had their streets flooded and they didn't have electricity and all sorts of stuff, they ended up going and helping out at the food pantries and at the shelters. And they were like cleaning out, they were collecting blankets and clothing and everything else and cleaning out closets and dropping all these things off at these shelters because people needed so much help. And, you know, by publicly acknowledging, even though they're not asking for public acknowledgement, I think that, you know, coming out and saying, well, you know, we'd like to give I don't know, an award of acknowledgement to this group for the work that they've done. You know.
You have to come up with a name like TOS or something like that.
A certificate of appreciation.
Yeah, certificate of appreciation or something like that.
The other thing it will do, I think there are many groups who are doing things, but they're very quiet about it or don't stop and think. And that might get them to be a little bit more vocal about it, which will inspire other groups.
Yeah, that's true.
You could also ask for nominations for the award. And that's another way of involving more people and getting people thinking about, you know, who are the people that are serving.
Yeah,
And you could announce it at convention next summer.
that's true. That's true. That's a really good idea. Because, you know, it's funny because the TOS is supposed to be like the sort of practical side of service, you know. It's the physical things that we're doing out in the world and so forth. And in turn, there should be some kind of physical thing to be able to say about appreciation, even though it's not, we're supposed to be doing this work selflessly without any expectation of any recognition whatsoever. But maybe that
Yeah,
can...
I heard your hesitation, and I don't think it has to be either or. I think it can be both.
Yeah, it could be a but and, or a yes and.
Yeah.
You know, I was wondering if maybe the TOS itself could give an award to an organization that is doing what we consider very important service. That could also draw people's attention to other people who are doing service work, and that might be inspirational also. For instance, I get flyers from this organization called the Heifer Group, and they try to empower people by giving them, you know, a flock of geese or a bunch of chickens or something like that. And to me, that's inspirational. When I see that if I can, for $50, help a family to now feed themselves, that in and of itself makes me want to continue to do that.
Okay.
Lots of different thoughts in different areas.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, you know, through this type of thing, perhaps it can pull in more people to want to, you know, pay attention to what are their everyday leader moments.
Yeah.
So
I don't mean to be a stickler, but it's 5 to 3.
right.
Promise to be watchful of everybody's time.
Right.
Does
Yeah.
anybody,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if anybody had any kind of final comments or wrap-up comments or...
Mm-hmm.
I found this very helpful to kind of brainstorm what other people are doing and what changes I can make to be of service. I don't know that the video inspired me, but I think just our conversations did.
Okay, good. Good. Well, that's important, Diana. That's important to hear.
What about anybody else?
I think the video reinforced that what we were talking about last week and a little bit this week is how service is much more than projects and everything else, but kind of a in-life commitment.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's very true. It is, yeah. Well, I enjoyed this video a lot. I every time I see it, I think I've seen this now 4 times, and each time I see it, I get something else out of it. So, because it's really very simple, and it kind of validates for some of us who are already doing those lollipop moments for people or getting lollipop moments from them. It validates the whole process. It's just being in that moment of love, and just working from the heart.
You could change the name of the TOS to Working from the Heart.
I wonder how Annie Besant would feel about that.
But nobody can see my face to know that I'm just joking.
I'm going to leave for now, but I very much appreciated this, Anya and Barbara. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Diane. Thanks for coming. So, yeah, if there aren't any other final comments, then we'll close it up here. Our next video is on November 19th, I believe. So, but you'll get another invite for it.
Okay.
So, thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Jim, especially thank you for hosting me.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
No problem.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Dragon. I'll see you on Wednesday. See you
See you on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, guys. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, you too.